Hi, this time we're going to go through a very important section, dates and deadlines. This is where everything's laid out. This is going to be your calendar for the next 30 or 60 days. So you need to know what's in here and make sure you keep up with it. And your broker should assist you with this. So first of all, on an alternative earnest money deadline, generally the earnest money is due when the contract is turned in. So you turn the contract into the seller with your down payment or your earnest money, saying, I'm serious, here's my money to prove it, and it goes together. However, with these days of signing online with a click, you're not going to get the money at the same time to the seller. So this gives you a couple days probably to get the money into the title company or the real estate agency's brokerage, wherever they tell you to put it, and that will be in the listing agreement. So for instance, if we sign this on Friday, we might give ourselves till Monday to get that earnest money into the title company or wherever they designate. That would go here. These title deadlines and off record and so on are all listed in more details over here. These are paragraph numbers. So right now we're in paragraph 3. When we get down to paragraph 8, it will go through all the title stuff. So I'm not going to explain it now, but this is where the dates are going to go, right here. If you're buying something in a townhome or a patio home that has a homeowners association, you will be given all the documents, because when you buy into a townhome, you're also buying into the homeowners association. You have obligations to pay and you have obligations to obey all their rules. So you give the seller a certain day to get that to you so you can have a chance to look at it, and then terminate it if you're not happy with it. If you say, nah, I'm out of here, this deadline gives you a way to get out of the contract, get your earnest money back. The seller's property disclosure is a very important one. This is where the seller fills out a form that will tell you everything they know at that time about their home and its condition. So if they've had water in the basement, they have to reveal that. If they know there's been meth lab in there, they have to reveal that. Anything that they know about anything to do with the house, it will show up on this. So be sure to go through that quickly when you get it and make sure you understand it. So the property disclosure deadline, you'll give them several days to get that back to you after they accept the contract. They will fill this form out. In fact, they may have already filled it out, but they should be able to get that to you pretty quickly. But this is the deadline date that you need to have that by. Then there's, if it was built before 1979, they have to fill out a lead-based paint disclosure, because lead-based paint was still available back then. And they have to tell if they know anything about it. And if you get that form, you'll have to fill out a form that says, I'm aware that the seller doesn't know anything about it, and either I will get it checked myself or I will waive that right. But there's the deadline for that to be done. The loan and credit. So if you're buying for cash, you can skip this section. If you're getting a loan, you need to give yourself and the seller knowledge of when you're going to have that application in. Maybe you've already been pre-approved, hopefully, and you can put that just about anything, and you know you've already got that one made. Then further out, if you're still waiting to be finally approved, this can be out quite a ways, and you can say, if I don't like anything about the terms of this loan, either the amount or the interest rate or the payment or anything at my discretion, I can terminate, but by this date. Again, that will be in section paragraph 5.2 that we'll get to later. The buyer's credit information deadline, that's mainly if you're going to be buying with owner financing and they're going to front some of the money to you. They want to see your credit scores and so on. So there's the deadline for that. And there's a disapproval deadline. So if they get all this stuff in and they say, I'm not going to lend you any money, forget it, they have until this date to do it. The existing loan deadline and termination deadline go in here. Loan transfer. Now, in some cases, they might be transferring a loan to you. If their loan allows it, they can transfer the loan to you. You just take over the loan. This is something investors do all the time. It's not really common just in normal sales. But if you're getting a loan transfer to you, here's the deadline. If you're getting private financing, they're going to lend you the down payment. They're going to lend you $20,000 to get into this thing. There's the deadline to have that all done. Then the appraisal comes up. Your lender will need to make sure that if you're buying a $300,000 home and getting a loan for $250,000, they want to make sure that they're covered. So if the loan goes bad, they want to make sure that the property is worth at least that much. So the appraisal deadline goes in here. Now, a lot of these, I've highlighted this because a lot of these come in threes: deadline, the objection, and the resolution. What this means is, let's say the appraisal is out 15 days from now. So you've got to have the lender get your appraisal done by then. Then you've got a few days to object if it's a contract for $300,000 and the appraisal comes back at $285,000. You've got a few days to figure that out, but you've got an objection. You say, I don't like it. And then there's a few days after that where you and the seller resolve this problem together. So either they will lower the price, or you'll come up with cash, or they'll come up with some other solution. That's the resolution deadline. So that would go right here. The ILC, or new survey. If you're out in the county, you will get a full survey because it's more difficult to know exactly the property you're buying legally. If you're in town, you will probably get an improvement location certificate. This means an improvement is anything that's put on the land. So this is the house, the shed, the fence, all that kind of stuff will be done by a surveyor, but it's not as complex or detailed or expensive as a survey. They will go in and just make sure that if your shed is over the line, you'll know about it. If their fence is over the line, you'll know about it. That's what this is for. So again, you get the deadline, then you get a few days after that to object to it if you don't like it, and then a few days after that to resolve it between you and the seller. Inspection and due diligence. So this should come up pretty quickly. You want to know right away if this house has any problems that you want to not deal with. So you get your inspection lined up right away. You've got a deadline here that's written so the seller and you both know when that's got to be done. Then you've got a few days after that that say, I can get out of it and get my earnest money back if there's something that wasn't obvious when I walked the property. It's something more hidden and I found out about it and I don't like it. I can get out of it and I get my earnest money back by this date. Most often, the buyer will find a few things they don't like, and they will go back to the seller and say, hey, you got to put in the radon mitigation. You've got to, I want the roof patched. I want several things done. And if you do those to my satisfaction, the contract will go through. And then the seller has until this deadline, the resolution deadline, to resolve that problem. They will say, I'll do this much, but not anymore, or forget it, we're out, or yeah, I'll do everything. But that is the deadline to get that resolved. You also have to get property insurance. They're going to want that. Your lender is going to want to make sure you're insured at closing. So right away, you're going to want to go out and get your insurance lined up, and this is the deadline to have that finished. Due diligence documents will be explained more fully in 10.6. Again, delivery, objection, and resolution, the same pattern. So this will have the dates for that. And conditional sale deadline was explained in 10.7. There's a date for that. Lead-based paint termination. So if you're not happy with the resolution of or inspection of the lead-based paint, you can get out of it by this date. Then the final thing is, when are we going to close? So right now, a lot of dates with lenders are taking about 30 days to get the inspection done, the appraisal done, the loan approved, all the resolutions taken care of. So somewhere out a month or so, maybe 45 days, will be the closing date. The possession date is usually the same day, and the possession time is usually at closing. However, if the seller says, well, I'm moving to Dallas, but our home won't be ready until the first of next month, so I want you to have a possession date. We're closing on the 15th, but I'm not going to be out until the 1st. The 1st would go here, and perhaps you'd have a rent back, a lease back provision for them so that they can stay in the house until the 1st, even though you own it, and they will be leasing it the last 2 weeks, something like that. So that's what those all mean. The acceptance deadline date, that means if I put this in today at 10 o'clock in the morning, I want to know right away if you're going to accept this or not. I may be looking at other properties. You may have other buyers interested in it as well, but let's figure out if this is going to work right away. So I might put this for tomorrow's date at 5 o'clock, something like that. So the seller's on notice that they've got to make up a decision. Are we going to accept this contract as it's written, or are we going to not? So that's what this is for. As it says here, if you've got a FHA or VA loan coming in, the appraisal deadlines don't apply. So check with your broker and your VHA or VA lender about that. And then the last section we're going to cover here is applicability, easy for me to say, of terms. So any box you check means that provision applies. So if I checked joint tenancy, that's the one, and the other two don't apply. If up here, for instance, I've left something blank, or I've put in NA, or I've put in deleted, that means that part doesn't apply. If there's a section that has none as one of the choices, as we'll see in some of those, they do apply. You can either check none, but if you leave it blank, none is what will apply. So be sure to look for that. That's it for this one. On to the next section.